This is Taking Stock on Bloomberg. I'm Pim Fox. As BP Chief Executive Tony Hayward fielded questions from congressmen about the safety of BP's oil drilling practices, about its efforts to pay claims and its efforts to clean up the spill in the Gulf of Mexico, the oil continues to gush forth from the seabed. Tony Hayward sparring with members of Congress today as they asked him pointedly over and over again what responsibility he personally was taking in the disaster in the Gulf of Mexico. Let's find out more from the base of this hearings in Washington, D.C. Let's go to Bloomberg's Brian Weiss. Brian, what can you tell us? A lot of contentious back and forth today.
Absolutely, Pim. Look, we just saw Tony Hayward rush out. It looked like he couldn't really wait to get out of here. He ran by us. He didn't speak to reporters. And this is a hearing that started 7.5 hours ago. So he's been grilled really for quite some time. Now, this started with some fireworks this morning. Right when he began his testimony, a protester began screaming, shouting. She had oil painted on her face, oil painted on her hands, and told the hearing that she wanted to make a citizen's arrest. So that really set the tone of how divisive this would be. And she wasn't the only one upset at Mr. Hayward. Members of Congress continually attacking him for BP's poor safety record, for what they call a culture of cutting costs and compromising safety, and that questionable engineering of that well that has burst. Now, they repeatedly told Mr. Hayward that he was not being forthcoming, that he wasn't giving them enough answers to their questions, and he continued to tell them he didn't know, and that irks the members. Take a listen to one of the exchanges.
I wasn't involved in any of the decision-making. It's clear that there was some discussion amongst the engineering team and an engineering judgment was taken.
It's clear to me that you don't want to answer our questions. Because isn't it true that you've served your life in BP? You've only recently become the CEO, but haven't you been in this business most of your professional life?
I've been in this business 28 years.
28 years. So you should have some knowledge about these issues.
So there you hear it. He continued to distance himself from that well. He continued to say that he had nothing to do with the way it was engineered. And when he was asked if he should step down as CEO, would he step down as CEO, he continued to say that no heads would roll. They would make no personnel decisions until they stopped the leak. Now we're waiting to hear from Chairman Stupak at our position here any moment now. Obviously a long day of hearings. We'll send it back to you for now, Phil.
Brian, did you notice any change in tone from the Democrat or the Republican questioning? Or is it really all about going after Tony Hayward?
Well, it's not necessarily just going against Tony Hayward. You mentioned it. Republicans, a couple of them. Joe Barton from Texas, he's known to be a friend of the oil companies. And what he basically said in this hearing was the $20 billion compensation fund set aside by the White House yesterday, he originally called that a slush fund. He considered it a $20 billion shakedown. The White House responded saying that was a shameful comment, and eventually after a break, he did have to repeal that. He came back and sort of backtracked from that. So obviously Republicans had some concern about it, and those were sort of the dividing lines between the two parties, Ben.
All right, I want to thank you very much, Brian Weiss.